18 hours, I deserve to be paid for every single one. Cry me a river, she's just exactly everything that we can't stand.
Producer of this movie flew out to actually meet with Rachel Zegler in person to tell her to stop. The thing that Rachel Zegler, I think, did the worst was a number of social media statements basically saying that she did not want half the country to watch her own movie.
Rachel Zegler. And I've got no real issue with that, although of course Snow White was called Snow White because her skin was as white as the snow.
Maybe not destroy a classic from my childhood and put an actress in there that not only hates the movie she's in, but also seemingly hates Snow White, the character, herself.
Garden of Eden? Well, yes. Pause up.
All right, buckle up, my friends, because we've got a tale here that is almost too good to be true. You might want to grab a snack, pour yourself something strong, and get comfortable, because we're about to dive into the drama surrounding Disney's Snow White reboot. But let me tell you, it's not all fairy tale magic and happily ever afters. Oh no, this one's got more twists, turns, and behind-the-scenes chaos than you could ever imagine. So let's talk about Rachel Zegler, Disney, and the shocking confessions that you won't believe. First off, if you didn't already know, Snow White, the live-action remake, not the animated classic obviously, was supposed to be this big, bold, groundbreaking movie. Rachel Zegler, fresh off West Side Story, was tapped to play the iconic role of Snow White. I mean, they were clearly trying to do something fresh. She's Latina, she's got the chops, and she was ready to slay it, right? Well, hold your horses, because not everyone was thrilled. When the casting was announced, Twitter lost its collective minds. You would have thought that Disney had cast a literal frog in the role of Snow White. I mean, there were so many people trashing their keyboards, gasping for air, like, how dare they cast a Latina as Snow White? Like, really? In 2025, we're still stuck on this nonsense? But naturally, Rachel took it all in stride. She was like, look, I'm here to do a job and I'm super excited. And honestly, it was kind of refreshing to see someone not get totally knocked off their high horse by Twitter trolls. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Oh no, it gets even better.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Oh, really? Are you having trouble paying your bills, Rachel? Did Steven Spielberg not pay you for your role in West Side Story? Did Disney fail to give you a healthy paycheck? Every time she speaks, she gets less likable. There's some clip of her on the internet in her Snow White outfit saying, all 18 hours, I deserve to be paid for every single one. Cry me a river. She's just exactly everything that we can't stand.
Not only was Rachel dealing with the casual racism from people who couldn't handle change, but she also had to face even more drama surrounding the character itself. If you haven't heard, Zegler went on a whole rant about how Snow White was this weird character that spent most of her time waiting for a dude to save her. And to that I say, preach, Rachel. I mean, let's be honest, if you break it down, Snow White spends most of her time cooking, cleaning, and waiting for a prince to swoop in. What's the message here? Don't worry, princess, your fate will be decided by some guy who thinks he's the hero. So Rachel, being the feminist queen that she is, wasn't about that life. She made it clear that their version of Snow White would be an empowered princess who doesn't need a man to tell her what to do. Instead, she's going to be like, I'm taking control of my own destiny, thank you very much. And naturally, the internet had thoughts about that. Some people were all for it, applauding the shift in narrative, but others, well, they were clutching their pearls again like, Snow White needs a man, it's tradition. And I guess some people still want the fairy tale to be just as outdated as it was in 1937. So of course the drama just kept building. And then, as if the internet comments weren't enough to drive anyone crazy, Zegler faced another issue, a massive issue. This wasn't about her casting or Snow White's character. This was about the film's direction. Apparently, Rachel almost walked away from the movie, like actually almost quit. And if you've ever seen a diva throw in the towel, you know that's not a decision made lightly. She was apparently having creative differences with the way the film was being handled. And boy, when you're working with Disney, you'd better believe those differences aren't just little disagreements over the script. We're talking full-on drama behind the scenes. The rumors were flying left and right. Some sources say she wasn't happy with how the film was straying too far from the original concept, while others suggest that the production team and Zegler had major issues with the film's overall tone. Which, let's be real, if you're Disney and you've got a $200 million budget for a Snow White remake, the last thing you want is for your leading lady to be so unhappy she's ready to jump ship. Imagine the PR nightmare that would have been. You know they were sweating bullets over there trying to keep her happy. So what exactly were these creative differences? Well, the film, as we know, was trying to update the classic, make it more modern and inclusive, which in theory is great, but sometimes when you try to reinvent something too much, you end up with a hot mess. And I'm not just talking about the script. I mean, how many times have we seen Disney try to rebrand a classic and end up with a product no one actually wants to see? We've seen the memes, we know the pain. But it wasn't just the film's direction that was causing Zegler to consider jumping ship.
Snow White, Rachel Zegler!
Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White?
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age.
There was also a little bit of backstage drama brewing with her co-star Gal Gadot. Yep, Wonder Woman herself was apparently not exactly BFFs with Rachel behind the scenes. I mean, you'd think they'd be getting along, making Instagram stories together, but apparently there were some tensions. Word on the street is that Gadot wasn't exactly thrilled with some of the public comments Zegler had made regarding her role as the evil queen. Zegler didn't exactly hold back when discussing her thoughts on the baddie being portrayed as a one-dimensional villain. Oh, and it gets better. Some people say Gadot felt like Zegler was being a little too vocal about everything. The two weren't exactly hanging out after work hours, and it wasn't helping that someone wasn't exactly pulling their weight in the "we're all a happy family" department. So yeah, it's safe to say that when Rachel said she almost quit, she wasn't just talking about some mild creative differences. She was seriously considering throwing in the towel. The stress must have been through the roof. Can you imagine being in her shoes? Stuck in a multi-million-dollar movie that everyone's watching, where the stakes are higher than your credit card bill after a shopping spree, with all these personalities clashing? Yikes. But here's the plot twist. Rachel didn't quit. Nope, she stuck with it, probably because she realized, well, this is Disney and I'd rather be in the movie than not, and maybe because she didn't want to be known as the one who bailed on the biggest project of her career. So she sucked it up, threw on that princess gown, and finished filming. But don't be fooled, she was not a happy camper. Her personal struggles throughout the movie were so well hidden, you'd think she was starring in The Wizard of Oz, except instead of Dorothy, it was Rachel Zegler battling a bunch of flying monkeys made of pure chaos. And let's talk about the aftermath. The film, upon its release, flopped, and I'm not talking about a little stumble. I'm talking about a full-on faceplant. The critics weren't impressed, and fans weren't either. With a budget of over $200 million, the box office return was, well, less than stellar. It made about $43 million its opening weekend, and we all know what that means. Somebody at Disney was about to be fired. Well, maybe not literally fired, but their hair was probably falling out in stress. After all, the Snow White remake was supposed to be a showstopper, not an expensive disaster. Critics tore into the CGI, the pacing, and especially Gadot's portrayal of the evil queen. You know you got a problem even when Joe Rogan is making jokes about your film's box office numbers. Yep, he actually said that Dogecoin should audit the movie's finances. Let that sink in. A crypto meme is making fun of your movie's failure. Not a good look, Disney. Not a good look.
How
She's
about
a fucking kid, right?
She didn't write that script though, right? And I don't think she made the no dwarves decisions. That was Sir Peter Dinklage. I mean, I'm sure she sucks, but she is very young.
Wait, what's her name? Rachel?
Yeah. So now, if you notice the spin on it, they're putting it all on her.
So did Rachel Zegler almost quit Snow White? The rumors are true. She came this close to walking away from the whole thing. But in the end, she stuck it out, and honestly, can we blame her? It's a Disney movie, for crying out loud. But it wasn't an easy journey, and she was up against far more than just creative differences. She was battling public opinion, a tense set, and a film that, frankly, wasn't living up to expectations. And as for the rest of us, we're just left watching the chaos unfold, popcorn in hand, wondering what's next in this tangled web of movie-making madness. But we're not alone. Some celebs are also throwing subtle shade in Zegler's direction. One Hollywood insider allegedly said that some of her co-stars were annoyed by her constant comments on the film, and some even hint that the backlash could have been prevented if she just kept her mouth shut. I mean, the only thing worse than a bad Snow White movie is a bad Snow White movie with the lead actress who's basically waving a giant red flag that says, "Come at me, Internet." It's a whole vibe and not the good kind. A few unnamed celebs have also further hinted that some of the crew members might have been happy when the film bombed. Shocking, right? But hey, in the world of Hollywood, if your movie tanks, the last thing you want is your lead actor going on a snow job tour, making the whole thing sound worse than it is. Even some of Rachel's co-stars are apparently saying a little too quiet for comfort. Gal Gadot is practically radio silent. You know that awkward silence in the room when everyone's pretending they're not thinking about something super uncomfortable? Yeah, that's how things are going. The two actresses didn't exactly bond over their shared princess duties. Rachel's words about the script didn't exactly land too well with the Wonder Woman star, who's been doing damage control for the evil Queen character since the movie hit the screens. I'm not saying there's tension, but there's definitely a lot of unspoken words. And let's not forget the scathing online reviews. The film was practically torn apart, with critics mocking everything from the special effects to the pacing. And poor Rachel? Well, she's now a regular punching bag. Let's put it this way, if the film was a dumpster fire, Rachel's becoming the literal fuel on it. So yeah, celebs speaking out against Rachel, it's happening, but it's happening quietly. The kind of quiet where you're worried someone's going to break the silence by throwing a drink in your face. And as for Rachel, well, she's definitely got thick skin, but I'm sure she's wishing she could magically disappear into that forest. Good luck with that, Snow White. You got a long road ahead of you. See you next time.